Welcome to the 3P's podcast from Zeus Fire and Security. I'm Scott Elkins, CEO of Zeus, and I'm excited you're tuning in today. At Zeus, our mission is simple. We protect people, property, and profits, and we do it through innovation, teamwork, and a relentless drive for excellence. In this special leadership series, we're shining a light on the people driving growth, innovation, and success across the entire Zeus network. Each episode, we sit down with one of our leaders to explore their journey, their leadership style, and the real-world lessons they've learned along the way. These conversations are about more than job titles. They're about how we build strong teams, serve our customers, and lead with purpose. Today, I'm joined by Brandon Ramsey, President and Chief Operating Officer. Brandon came to Zeus in March of 2024 and has made an incredible impact, leading the charge on our business strategy and operational excellence as we continue to grow across North America. With nearly 25 years of experience, including leadership roles at Ferrandino & Son, ADT, Tyco, and Johnson Controls, Brandon brings a rare combination of strategic thinking, operational rigor, and a passion for execution. Let's hear how he's driving performance, building momentum, and helping Zeus evolve into a tech-enabled powerhouse in the fire and security space. Welcome, Brandon. We're thrilled to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to sharing a little bit about myself and what we're building here at Zeus.
Yeah, so what we're building at Zeus is really exciting, and I'm super excited that you're here and we have the ability to talk about it together. So truth be told, we had a bunch of questions that we had talked about in advance and probably a bunch of answers that we thought of, but let's start with a bit of a curveball. One question that always comes up in this industry, and you'll know it right away, but why is it that people join this industry 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they're still here? They can never leave. What it is about this space that keeps drawing people back? It drew you back.
Scott, awesome question. And I would tell you, I can't tell you why other people, but I'll tell you my story. What I remember, I went to my son's kindergarten class, and it was bring your dad or mom to work day. And a bunch of kids got up, and their dad was this or that, and my son gets up and says, "What did your dad do?" He saves lives.
Yeah.
I looked over my shoulder. I'm like, what? What is he talking about? Because I was brand new in the industry, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's right.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing because he actually was starting to identify the 3P's, protecting people, property, and profits 20-something years ago, right?
Before I was.
Right. That's great. So your first job in this industry, your job title was what?
I came in as a call center analyst. I actually took a job in our regional dispatch centers and kind of built up that group and kind of did a lot of process automation and betterment inside those groups.
And that was for one of the national providers in our space.
It was.
Yeah. So what was that experience like in the early days, and how did you feel like you were making an impact?
Well, it was interesting. I applied for an analyst role in one of the roles that there were two roles that were open. One in our customer monitoring centers, which was kind of more of a prestigious, well-run organization that had a lot more history and experience. In this almost quote unquote startup in our regional dispatch space. When I got there were 6 regional dispatch centers and no standard process, many came through acquisition, and it was just kind of a rebuild. And it was such an interesting play. It was probably the biggest blessing for my career because I got to build something instead of going to be part of something that was already built.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think we're just going to throw away the questions and just go with that. So, having the opportunity to build something, I think you and I both agree, is pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had an opportunity to build a number of times in your career. So before we get into the Zeus build, I'd be curious to learn, and for the audience to know, what else have you built in your career? Because I know it's been both in and out of the industry.
I had the experience that I continually changed jobs within staying in the same large organization. The good news was they liked what I did in the dispatch centers and kind of moved me on into other centers. I was able to build our order entry process and billing and collections process. We took kind of established businesses that did it a certain way, and we re-engineered all of them. And it was really great to see the teams at first. They're like, we can't do this. And then ultimately the light bulbs would go on and yes, we can do this. And by the way, here are the results. So for me, it was completely, exhilarating to watch a team that started with no and got to, oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a kind of a theme since I've known you, but I'm sure it showed up a lot in your career because you didn't start. You didn't stop there.
No.
You kept going into
Yeah.
into one leadership role after another. Take us through some of the others.
Yeah. So after kind of leading the dispatch space, I kind of went into I looked around our businesses and I automated a lot of my job away. So I started to look into the field and realized we were really short in metrics. And so put a lot of focus on operating metrics, creating a lot of the operating metrics that the big companies use today. And so we spent a lot of time and I learned the business through analytics. And so at that point I was able, they let me run, or they promoted me into running the service business for North America. So I had all the service delivery for North America.
About how many either employees or trucks or branches?
Yeah, 3,500 technicians.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and it was all across North America. I should say U.S. and Canada.
Sure.
And so it wasn't a P&L responsibility job, but it was an operational excellence type job. And we ran all sorts of, betterment programs and really drove excellence in the service space.
So you said analytics, you said metrics, I think KPIs, right? Analytics and metrics, we were in the industry at the same time, different spaces. Those weren't common buzzwords.
No.
No. And I know you were really at the forefront of this. I'm curious as to how that happened.
So it was just a gap in time. Like it was just, there was a gap in the industry, and we were looking around saying, well, and I'll tell you a story. Let me go back.
Sure.
When we first started this, we were trying to create a productivity measure. We had 4 or 5 people who did nothing but look at technicians' pages from the day before and type how many jobs they completed.
Pretty inefficient.
Very inefficient. So we went in and we went down a path of how do we automate this? We had data warehousing and we had a lot of data, but not a lot of analytics with it. So we were able to have, the good news was the data was there. The bad news was we really didn't know how to use it. So we took a lot of time and effort. I certainly had a wonderful team that helped build this. And at the end, they're still using the same metrics in these large organizations. I have a few friends that still work there.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So, okay, so you said no P&L yet.
Yeah.
So when does P&L show up in your career?
P&L, I was always L, right? So I ran centers, right? So that it was always about cost management and things of that nature.
Sure.
Once I started to work in the field and working with offices, I really got the bug. And so we started down the path of splitting a large organization in 2. I stayed behind with the commercial business. And at that point, I started as an area general manager. I had all of our New York business. And at that point, that was a P&L opportunity.
Got it. How big a business was that?
That was about a $90 million business. Within 9 months, I had New Jersey, another $60 million business. And then with another year, I had the entire Eastern region, which is a $500 million P&L.
So let's just put it in perspective. $500 million is a lot of money in 2025, leading into 26.
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
2015.
Yeah, so 2015. So that's not $500 million today. That's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
That's a big business you're running.
Yeah.
And then your career took a bit of a turn shortly thereafter. In a positive way, giving you really the ultimate leadership responsibility.
Well, I'll give you 2 because I'll connect the dots between that and when I left the industry. We merged with Johnson Controls, and I spent the majority of my career with ADT in the security business. I went to work with Simplex Grinnell in the fire business and did 2 years of running their service business for U.S. and Canada. Similar to what I did at ADT earlier, non-P&L type role day to day, but certainly had P&L responsibility communication to our CEO. I left the industry in 2019. I went to a national facility maintenance and construction business, Ferrandino and Son, and was there for 5 years as the president.
So I began by saying, let's throw away the script and just talk about why people get into the industry and never leave. You left.
Yeah.
Well, what was that about?
It was a life change. I wasn't looking. They found me, and the opportunity was somewhat life-changing. It was an ability to go from a very large organization and once again reinvent myself. I stayed with these large organizations, but changed jobs and did a lot of different functions. And I found myself wanting to do it again. And this opportunity found me, and I was able to they brought me in as the president. And it was a wonderful opportunity. And I thank that team often because I grew a ton. During that time, and going from having a huge organization where you have to yank on the wheel to turn it a half an inch Saying if you lean on it, you can flip the boat over.
Right. Right. So, probably a little scary leaving an organization and an industry that you grew up in, an industry for which you had developed a reputation of great success, to kind of stepping out and trying something new. I totally get this notion of, I'm interested in trying something new. I get to be president of this, business, and I'm going to be in control. I'm going to make the final decision, but still have to be a little scary.
Yeah, of course. Just the unknown, right? Not knowing what you're getting into. Again, I had great leadership that was already in place, but really bringing in structure, P&L management, day-to-day KPIs is kind of the same playbook I ran in all my other jobs. But certainly I was welcomed, and it was great to have a team that really wanted this change. So it wasn't like I came in and people were like, worried or things like that. I was welcome there.
So we're going to get to Zeus and your role and your experience at Zeus in a minute, but I'm curious about something you just said. You talked about going from this big company where it was really hard to make change, right? A big ship takes a long time to turn, to a smaller business where you could turn it, in your words, you can capsize it if you wanted to, right? And we'll get to Zeus in a moment, but I am curious how that experience impacted your ability to work with the types of companies that we're partnering with, that we're acquiring, because these aren't big businesses.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I had a 90-day plan. I know that will shock you, Scott. I did have a 90-day plan going into to the job, and on day 3, I ripped it up.
Yeah.
I realized that the speed in which I wanted to change, it would not have been receptive. So again, it's one of those things, and I think it helps us in our approach today with integrations of the small to mid-sized businesses. Is you certainly have a plan, and we'll certainly have a playbook, but you can't round peg square hole things, right? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so that really gave me the I guess the foresight to understand that, and it helped me make better decisions here at Zeus.
Great. So you get a phone call one day, and now this Zeus opportunity presents itself. There are times when professionals such as yourself get phone calls and don't answer them or don't respond to them. And then there are times where professionals such as yourself pick it up, have the conversation, and become interested in something new or something different. I'm curious, why Zeus and why then in your career?
Yeah, so at the time, it was less about leaving the job I was at, and it was more about, wow, the one thing I haven't done is kind of work with a private equity firm, build the businesses. And what I thought was really cool about the Zeus mission was you take these small and medium businesses, you put them together, you help them scale and grow, right? To me, that's what fuels me today, is every time we put these businesses together, they're great businesses. All we're doing is pouring a little gasoline on their fire to make them go faster. And I love the approach. I love the investment approach that we invest in our businesses. We're not looking to take cost out. I was a little weary of cost out environments. So to me, I'll be honest with you, that's what drove me.
Yeah. So you joined Zeus in 2024 as president and chief operating officer. And you step into something, I'd argue, tell me if I'm wrong, somewhere between this big machine you ran and then this smaller business that you ran. This is a different type of operation. We move at a much different pace than you've experienced, certainly different pace than I experienced in my career. And we interact with a lot more businesses that we didn't know 3 months, 6 months, a year ago. And there's a ton of change management. Were you expecting that, prepared for it? Did it come as a surprise? And regardless of the answer, kind of how did you assimilate that into how you operate?
Yeah, so I think it's a collection of my experience, right? I think for me, it is a ton of change management. In the past, I might have come with a little more vigor and kind of pushing my program. But even when I was running service for ADT, we were selling our ideas to the offices, right?
Sure.
We were going to get there eventually, but it worked a lot better when they bought in, right? Mm-hmm. So the same thing here is when you start to come in and you look around and you see these businesses, there's a lot more listening, a lot less talking. For me, that wasn't easy. I like to talk, and for me to listen more, to understand what made them great. and what we can do. Like we said, we have a playbook for integration, but we want to do it on the right pace and affect the right things at the right time.
Yeah. So how does our notion of best idea wins resonate when we partner with all of these businesses?
I love the idea of the best idea wins. I think for me, what I take from that is when I meet these owners and companies for the first time, listening more, hearing what they're doing, what made them successful, and what in their mind is their secret sauce. And for me, not to come in over the top of that and try to change what made them great.
Yeah. So sometimes what we do in order to fully integrate businesses, we go in and we change systems and processes because we are building one unified, we're a house of brands, right? So we want to maintain the legacy of the larger businesses that we partner with, but we need from the back end to operate as one business because it's the only way we can operate a business. Can't do KPIs on 25 companies effectively. Yeah. When we go to those businesses and we begin the process of change management, that's often where we find the first level of, I don't want to say pushback, but the first level of we're making a former owner or a current president a bit uncomfortable. And I think that's okay, right? How have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, I agreed, right? I think when you run the business, for 10, 15, 20 years a certain way, and then someone comes in and starts to change that, certainly there's anxiety and pushback. I would say, again, we're very thoughtful in how we do this. We go outside in. What I would say is we change the processes that touch the customer the farthest away from the customer and work our way in. We want to, again, we talked earlier about pouring gas on the fire. We want to certainly give them tools that put wind behind their sails and not about changing how they sell in their marketplace and things like that. Because I'm a big believer in customers want to be served the way they want to be served. And we want to meet the customer there, not necessarily change how we do that.
Yeah, and I guess that dovetails directly into the experience we have with either sellers or people we're partnering with, right? We want to make sure that they have the ability to continue to serve their employees and to serve their customers as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of our key tenets of how we operate is we want to take the back office stuff away and free them up to really focus on what they want to focus on, which is customers and employees.
Yeah, so a little while ago in this podcast, you had mentioned we're not coming in here to cut costs. We're coming in here to grow businesses. I'd love your experience, particularly working at very large companies where cost cutting might have been an annual process to investing in businesses that haven't had a lot of investment in years. What's that process been like for you?
Honestly, it's been one of the best parts of my job, to be honest. It's such a breath of fresh air approach that I haven't had in a long time, and being able to invest in a business, right? It's always about cutting costs to make your number. And in fact, it was an annual process. The budgetary process was exactly that, right? And I think the beauty of our business is we're here to grow it, and we've seen growth. So it's a lot easier to get investment when you see growth.
Yeah, and it's hard to grow without investment.
Exactly.
Right? Speaking about growth and investment, we live in a much different world from a technology standpoint. One of our core functions as members of the leadership team at Zeus is to ensure that we fully integrate these businesses. How is the technology that we're using today from hardware, software, and AI impacted our ability to advance that change, accelerate that change, or make that change more meaningful or valuable? If it has.
Yeah, I think it has. And I think what's interesting about it is if you think about these small and medium companies again, some of the tools we're bringing to bear, whether that's a CPQ, a CRM, was probably they would love to do it, but it was an investment they didn't want to make, right? And the fact when you can give them that, again, it goes back to the gas on the fire concept. When we can give them this tool and they start to see it work and the light bulbs go on, it's really cool to see them say, wow, I should have done this, right? There's always the I should have, but it's completely understandable that it's a large investment, and maybe they didn't feel they were going to get the yield from the investment.
Yeah, no doubt. You have created a cadence of regular meeting with our hub. Right? Others might call them branches. We call them hubs. Yeah. Our hub leaders. You've had regular cadence to get them all together on the phone for collaboration, and each and every one of them that I've had an opportunity to speak with before they join Zeus, speak with when they join Zeus, and now speak with after they've been part of your team for a little while, talks about those meetings as being one of the most rewarding parts of joining Zeus. What makes a former owner who's now a hub president, what makes them love a 90-minute Zoom call with you and the other hub leaders?
Yeah, I think it's people to collaborate or commiserate, right? Or things are going tough, we can bring these things on the calls and we talk about them. And being able to understand that it's not just you that's going through these things, right?
Yeah.
Having people to lean on and say, hey, I'm going through, I'm getting my first infill, right? Or I'm getting my first, bolt-on acquisition to my organization. How do I approach it? What does day 1 feel like? What's day 7 feel like? Going to the people, other presidents that have done it is really helpful for them. And I think for me, it's that cross collaboration. Now we're putting hubs together where they've created their own collaboration teams, whether it's the presidents, whether it's our operations teams and our sales teams. It's been a great concept. And I think for me, it's rewarding to see the eyes, because I think at first, no one wants another conference call on their schedule.
Sure.
But I think they truly do look forward to it. And we keep it light. We obviously go through what we need to do, but we're always doing it with smile, and hopefully they feel that.
Yeah. So earlier we touched on KPIs. So for our audience, first explain what KPIs are and then why they're so critical to the business and what we use them for.
Yeah, sure. Key performance indicators, right? We have a series of those that we run our output measures or our end of month measures on. Certainly that is a great start, right? We've built our scorecards for our operations and sales teams that we manage the outputs on. What we're really trying to do is get back to daily measures that that are input driven, that drive those output measures.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I take great pride in the daily measures. And if I manage the daily measures, I don't worry about the monthly measures,
Yeah.
right? I think the misgiving here is a lot of people think the KPIs are all about financial, and certainly we're a for-profit company, and we are going to understand how we're doing financially, right?
Sure.
So no one's going to...
Sure. Without making money, we can't grow the business. We can't hire more people. We can't continue to fulfill our mission of protecting people, property, and profits. No shame in that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But we've really kind of indexed on taking care of our clients, right? So NPS, to me, the mother of all measures, right? Really, the voice of the customer telling you how you're doing. And certainly we have each one of those metrics in our call, in our, I'll just say it. We have a measure in service, our mean time to repair, which is actually, a measure of how fast you close service calls. We have backlog conversion, how fast we're getting to our installers or our installation clients. And then ultimately, we're also measuring our call centers in ascertaining service levels.
Yeah. So what I'm most impressed by, and frankly, a little bit surprised by, and I'll own the naivety on my part, was the ability to quickly and effectively move performance by these daily measurements. And look, I understand as much as anybody, people will do, generally speaking, what you inspect, not what you expect. This notion of daily KPIs moves the needle on all of those and has moved the needle in an incredible way. Where we were when you started and where we are today are two completely different businesses for all intents and purposes, but yet we have more to go.
Yeah. I think to me, it's less about the measures. It's more about the operating rhythm. As we see every day, we see opportunities to move service calls faster to closure, to not let things age sitting in backlogs. And by seeing that day in and day out, to me, I had an old mentor in the business. He's like, this fire and security business is a big boulder. And your job is to keep hitting with a sledgehammer day in and day out. Yeah. Eventually it breaks.
Yeah, I think that's probably true of every business, right?
Probably.
But in ours, it really does resonate. As somebody that's been in this industry for 3+ decades, I totally accept that analogy as being true. So you started in 24. Mm-hmm. It's now nearing the end of 25. I don't know if this podcast will release in the end of 25 or 26. But when it does, it'll be about 2 years. How do you see the next 12 to 18 months of Zeus as we continue down this incredible journey?
Yeah, so I give that a lot. I've been giving that a lot of thought. I think it's all about driving our processes, right? Getting a standardized set of processes that we can be consistent in. And when the hubs are consistently running the same processes across all the same systems, again, it's a sledgehammer on the rock, right?
Yeah.
We start to really drive the performance, and it's less about the output. It's more about we're doing the things that we should be doing day in and day out because we can measure them, inspect them, and the results kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah, it goes back to I think every sports coach that I've ever had, right? Control what you can control,
Exactly.
right? And then the output will take care of itself, right?
100%. And
Yeah.
for me, it's like we'll know when we're successful when every day the process holds. We build robust processes that allow us to deliver the same result day in, day out, week in, week out.
Yeah. So as we begin to wrap up the podcast, curious about what surprised you most about this opportunity in a positive way, and maybe what surprised you most about this opportunity in a negative way. And I don't mean negative in terms of bad, but what did you come in thinking, my God, that might be easy, but oh my gosh, that's actually quite hard?
Yeah, let's start with the positive, like we always do.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the positive is it exceeded my expectations of, I guess, how much I would enjoy the job. I knew I was excited to get back into fire and security. You know, I went to a different space. I was certainly a novice in that space. I like to feel a little insecure, but getting back here where I kind of know the business a lot better, and so I could really like leverage that. So that, and I was worried about a little bit, like, hey, is this going to feel like a little bit the same? Will I get bored doing it? And I can honestly tell you that's not the case.
Yeah, there's not much boredom around here, is
No,
there?
no, there's not. I would say on the, I wouldn't call it negative side, but you know, I think you and I've talked about this is, you know, in my past life, I ran, you know, 39 offices and felt myself, hey, you know, we're coming in, it's 3-4, it's going to go to a number, but it's not going to probably get to 39 per
Sure.
se. It's been harder to kind of drive that consistency. I mean, I probably should have known that because of the different systems and the different cultures. And
Yeah.
in my old business, everybody kind of, you know, kind of knew the way, same system. So it was probably easier to run than when bringing businesses together and really changing their culture.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. What we do is different in a way that I never experienced either. And I think what's great about it is we've got an incredible leadership team that comes together to help each other kind of overcome all of those really material challenges of putting these businesses together, because we're not looking to acquire businesses for the sake of acquiring them. We're looking to acquire businesses so that we can run them together and run them better to fulfill our mission of protecting people, property, and profits. And it sounds so simple. It's really hard work, but you talk about output, but the goal's still the same. We've got companies that have been protecting their communities for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, and we just want to help them do it better. And for me, and I think for you and the rest of the team, like that guides everything we do.
Yeah, I mean, and it's rewarding, right? At the end of the day, they're like, you know, I love when the light bulb goes on, because I got to a point in my career that I've had a lot of those moments, but they never get old. And you hear that, I can almost hear it now. Bing. You know, when you get that, when they look at you like, now I got it. And so for me, that's extremely rewarding.
So no names, but when he watches it, he'll know who it was. We had a prospective seller in the office, but not that interested really, right? And after a brief conversation, I think that light bulb went off. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah,
you know who I'm talking about.
Of course, and he'll know. You know, I think for me, it's like, again, it's all about the listening. He never will admit this, but I think it was a staged comment that he made in the beginning of that, or scripted, I should say. And but ultimately, having a conversation with people and listening and being able to add maybe something he wasn't thinking about, and I was able to do that pretty quickly, and the whole dynamic of the meeting changed, and certainly has become one of the most, you know, highly respected presidents we have, and certainly a lead from the front guy, which, you know, I respect, and he's a thought leader in our business as well.
For sure, we are so fortunate that light bulb went off, whether scripted or not.
Yeah,
and we're fortunate that light bulb went up because he's been a true asset to the organization and will be for a very, very long time. Zeus was formed, as you know, in 2022 to be a leading provider of fire and security services across North America. And that's what we're doing. We're fulfilling our mission to build a modern and enduring business. But let's face it, you can't do it without a great leadership team and amazing employees throughout all of our hubs. And I feel incredibly fortunate to be part of that. Our business changed dramatically when you joined in 2024 to fill that role of President and Chief Operating Officer, and we've been a much better business as a result. So thank you so much for accepting this role. Thank you so much for everything you've done for Zeus, for your effort, for continuing to take that sledgehammer and beat on that rock day in and day out. Even when your shoulders hurt, we really appreciate it. And I couldn't be any happier to have you be not only President and Chief Operating Officer of this business, but a real leader throughout this industry and this organization. So thrilled to have you on the podcast and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity today. It was real fun and look forward to the next time.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of the 3P's podcast. Brandon, thank you for sharing your perspective and leadership approach with us. Your deep experience and clear-eyed focus on performance and people are helping Zeus take that next big step. At Zeus, we know that protecting people, property, and profits takes more than great products. It takes great leaders like you, helping us move forward every day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your team, and tune in for more conversations with the leaders shaping the future of Zeus Fire and Security. I'm Scott Elkins. Thanks for listening, and remember, at Zeus Fire and Security, we're better when we're together.